Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Caitlin Bassat, and I'm the Kamloops Youth Facilitator with the Invasive Species Council of BC. Thank you so much for joining us today for the first Invasive Species Action Month's webinar Wednesday. Today, Joanne Sales of the Broombusters Invasive Plant Society will discuss the best approach to control the spread of invasive Scotch broom. I hope you all had a chance to sign in early and get any technical glitches worked out. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, just write a note in the chat box and our ISCBC technical support will send you a private chat to help you out. Also, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to pop them into the chat window. The host will answer any non-speaker related questions in the chat. And then questions for Joanne will be answered in the allotted question and answer time. If we don't have enough time to answer all the questions, the answers will be sent out by email. So to begin, we'd like to find out who is here and where you all work or what your areas of interest are. So if you haven't already, can you all please type in your name and workplace or area of interest in the chat box, and we can review them while I'm introducing Joanne. So today's webinar is presented by Joanne Sales, an organic blueberry farmer and award-winning essay writer. She is the founder and executive director of Broombusters. Broombusters Invasive Plant Society started in 2006 as East Vancouver Island residents watched Scotch broom take over roads, farms, and cleared forest land. With 15 years of experience, Broombusters has developed effective strategies to eradicate and slow the spread of broom, to draw on support volunteers, and to build partnerships with municipalities, ministries, and communities. In 2018, over 500 volunteers cut broom for over 5,000 hours from Campbell River to Victoria. Cut Broom in Bloom is the slogan Broombusters created to summarize their approach. But what if the broom has been mowed or is too big or too much to cut? Joanne will discuss various approaches, techniques, and strategies to control the spread of this aggressive invasive woody weed. So at this point, I will pass the mic over to you, Joanne, and I hope you all enjoy the webinar.
Hello. Hello. Let's see.
Yeah, we can hear you, Joanne.
Okay, can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, really? I can't see me. So, okay. Okay, well, I can't see me, but that's okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Joanne Sales, and thank you for coming. I've been the executive director, and there I am. Okay. I'm the executive director and the founder of Broombusters Invasive Plant Society. I didn't set out to start a nonprofit. I just couldn't stand the sight of broom. It was 2006, and there were a group of us at the Arrington Farmers Market, and we were like, oh my goodness, the broom is everywhere. What are we going to do? And we kind of divided up tasks. My task was to go to the town of Qualicum Beach, which I did, and I said, why aren't you cutting your broom? And they said, well, we don't have the manpower. And so I said, well, if we cut the broom, will you remove it? And they said yes, and they've been saying yes every year since then. So Qualicum Beach, that was lined with broom, now has very, very little broom, and it disappears every spring if it shows up. Same thing happened with the Ministry of Transportation. We said, okay, if we, why aren't you getting rid of the broom? They said we can't do it. We said, well, if we cut the broom, will you clean it up? And at that point, they were able to do that. They don't clean it up anymore, but we have other ways of getting the broom removed. So that was 2006. We started with 6 people, and now we have over 500, 600 volunteers a year, and we cut broom for over 5,000 hours. So the main reason why Broombusters has spread so much is because there's such a need. People really don't like to see this broom. While we're talking today, I'm going to go over what's wrong with Scotch broom, why we want to get rid of it, why we cut broom in bloom as opposed to poison or pulling, and also how to work with the community, with the municipalities, the ministries, to empower the volunteers. So that's the goal for today. Let's see. At the same time that we're starting to cut broom in Qualicum Beach, I met a lifelong railroad man, and he said, if you cut broom when it's in bloom, it will die. That wasn't the prevalent idea at that time, but we tried it. In 2006, it worked. So then the next year when we started again, we had our slogan, which was cut broom in bloom, and we had a name. We called ourselves Broombusters. Okay, so that year also, then we started volunteering in Parksville, and then a woman called from the NIMO saying, hey, I want to get rid of the broom that's on the park near where I live. And then we got a call from a council member in Campbell River the next year, and he said, hey, we want to do what Qualicum Beach is doing. So basically, it spread fairly organically. Broombusters, there's no team of Broombusters that just goes from place to place and cuts broom, but rather we support anybody who volunteers. And we try to do that with tools, with publications, with connections, with vests and protective gear, whatever it is. So why do people care so much about Scotch Broom? I have every winter I go before council members and talk to them about why they don't want to have Scotch Broom in their municipality, because we need their help. We need permission, and we also need them to clean up the broom. And so we show a PowerPoint. And so I've made a version of that PowerPoint that we want to look at right now. This is why we want to get rid of Scotch Broom. So this is the PowerPoint like you were a council member in a local municipality. I hope. Okay. And okay, so everybody see that?
Yes, we can see it, Joanne.
Okay, good. All right, so why do we care so much about Scotch Broom? This picture is really a powerful one. It's a Parksville interchange. You can see that big field of broom. That was forest, as you can see the forest to the right, and that was forest until about, maybe 2008. The investor who owned the property cut it all down, didn't take care of the land, and the broom that was beside the road just moved in. It is still looks exactly like that. Okay, nothing has changed. It is still Scotch Broom. None of the trees have returned, and it's been well over 10 years. So what's wrong with Scotch Broom? It's an alien invasive plant. It was brought here in 1850, and it's been spreading up island from 3 seeds that were brought to Souk. It spreads rapidly in the sun, forms dense thickets, which means it will crowd out our native plants, highly flammable, prevents forest regrowth, which we can see in this picture. The forest did not grow back, leads to a dramatic loss of diversity. It's toxic to grazing animals and wildlife, and it takes over farm, forest, and parkland. I'm going to go through these individually. So broom makes private properties and parks and farms unusable. This was a photograph from the NIMO. People will buy investment property, they're going to build on it someday, and the broom would move in and take over. You don't see that in a NIMO anymore because fortunately they have a bylaw, so this is not allowed to happen anymore. But it's definitely not safe, makes people sick, fire hazard, all the bad things about urban broom infestations. Okay, broom spreads rapidly. It's an alien. There's no natural checks. So a single plant produces 18,000 seeds. So that's a lot of seeds, and they live in the soil for 30 to 50 years. They're viable in this soil. So you start out with a single plant, like you see on the left, and then it grows into a little bunch. And pretty soon you have something like you have on Inland Island Highway here, and that unfortunately you see all over Vancouver Island, where the broom is the only dominant plant. It's easy to get rid of when it's the 2 sizes on the left. But once it's taken over like that, it is very hard to get rid of. So on any disturbed soil in the sun, broom wins. This is another interchange in Parksville, and you can see everywhere that there has been disturbance of the soil, the broom will take over. I'm happy to say that a lot of that broom is now gone, cut by volunteers over the years. So our forests are in danger, okay, by Scotch Broom. Invasive plants grow faster than young trees, and we have a serious problem with broom that's growing on the power lines. And you can see the river of yellow there when it's in bloom. And then you can see how the broom has moved into the young forest. Fortunately, these trees started growing before the broom moved in, but frequently the broom will move in and the forest cannot regrow at all. Whenever there's deforestation or development, the broom moves in much faster than the trees can grow. And now additionally, we have climate change, hot, dry summers, wildfires and severe storms. The forests, the trees, the wildflowers cannot handle that, but it doesn't bother broom at all. So our forests have a problem. So how bad does it get? Well, these are pictures from New Zealand brought back by visitors from our area. So they didn't know any better, okay? So when the forest went down and the broom and the gorse moved in, that's just what happened. That is not what we want to happen in BC. Okay, so broom and gorse, which is a cousin to broom, can literally take over and the natural plants cannot return. Broom grows huge. You can see by the stump that's by my foot there and the large branches that the volunteers are cutting. Broom strangles the native species. These volunteers have uncovered a field of the rare camas flowers, and it takes over places that we love. So this was the Aerosmith Search and Rescue that did their practice on a cliff at Top Ridge Regional Park to remove the broom that was growing on the side of the cliff. But if we didn't have their help, we wouldn't have been able to remove that broom. Okay, here's probably the most serious problem about Scotch broom right now. Scotch broom is a volatile flash fuel. If you look at the side of the fire, you can see a fireman and you can see a truck. They're very small. Okay, this was a controlled burn in Powell River. When a fire hits broom, it's like pouring kerosene on the fire. So it makes any forest fire much worse. Here's a quote from Terry Peters, who's the fire chief in Powell River, who started a chapter of Broombusters in Powell River because of his concern about Scotch broom, the flammability. It says, Scotch broom is a volatile flash fuel. It will increase the fire's intensity, escalate the fire's intensity, compromise fire situations, and make fires more difficult to fight. The photos on the left, believe it or not, those are not dead broom. Those are just fields of broom on a hot summer. I think it was 2015. So you can see it's not just the high oil content of broom that makes it flammable, but also that it has an abundance of dead branches naturally. So broom on utility corridors creates an easy path for fire to travel across the island. So here you're seeing it's in bloom, but you have to remember the photo we just looked at and recognize that will be a highly flammable pathway for fire. So there are two myths that we had to fight when we started Broombusters. One was that we can't stop broom. That's not true. It's just that it has to be done properly, and people were using methods that weren't working. Look at how tall that broom is next to that woman who's standing at its base. So pulling, excavating, mowing, poisoning, and poor cutting will not work. The other myth was that broom is naturalized, meaning it's kind of moved in and it's going to act like a native plant. That's not true either. Broom will continue to take over like it has in Australia, New Zealand, Spain, Portugal, Brazil, Croatia, and many more places. It's a very, very aggressive plant. So now communities and residents are taking place. So this is a list of some of the towns and cities that are now supporting Broombusters, meaning that they're allowing people to volunteer, they remove the broom, and supporting them in whatever ways they can. So how to cut broom. These are just two pictures here, but we're going to do a whole video explaining it. But as you can see, we have a set of loppers there, and you want to get all the way down to the base. You have to get to the point where there's a single stalk coming out of the ground. Just cutting those branches off will not kill the broom, but you want to cut all the way down to the base, and you don't want to disturb the soil. So then the sun is not shining on the soil, and then the seeds don't germinate. So cut broom in bloom at ground level with loppers. This was a recent photo. Broom busting is actually fun, and if it's created in a fun way, people enjoy doing it. They really do. In fact, they become addicted. So in some of the towns now, we don't have enough broom locally to have a community cut. So we're moving on to cutting along the highways. So you can see the volunteers cutting on the bank. This again is outside of Parksville. And then you can see the huge piles that we had, and it's even more visible when they're dead. We don't want to have this very flammable plant on the side of our roads during the summer. So Broombusters' key strategies are cut broom and bloom, cut with loppers at ground level while it's in bloom, which is usually, not always, but usually late April through May. Do not pull, do not disturb the soil, and there's no need to poison. So those are our general rules. Of course, there are exceptions, but those rules work most of the time. And then like all invasive plants, containment is most important. So you go after advancing edge and new infestations first. Stop the spread, create shade, preserve trees and ground cover, cut off flowers if they're still yellow flowers and you don't have time to remove the whole plant. But the most important thing is just don't cut down the trees until you're really ready to take care of the land. Cooperation between municipalities, media, ministries, NGOs, communities, and volunteers. So this is Vancouver Island today. You can see that the broom is growing under the transmission lines. Okay, when a forest is cut, then the broom moves right in and that forest will not regrow. So you look at the picture of New Zealand, you look at the picture of Vancouver Island and realize that this is not what we want. So what do we want to leave our children? The three greatest threats to biodiversity are climate change, development, and invasive species, and nobody can do anything about that except us. So why cut the bloom and broom? It's for future generations. So, okay, now, let's see if I can get back to everybody. Okay, are we back? Can you see me? No. Yes?
Yeah, we can see you, Joanne.
Okay.
Yep, we can see you.
All right, okay. Okay, well, good. I hope that was helpful. It's about why people care. Now I want to talk about the model of broom busting before we actually watch a video of actual cutting of the broom. There is no a roaming band of Broombuster volunteers. People will call us up and say, hey, we sure wish that Broombusters would come to my road. That's not the way it works. What we do is we will support somebody or some town or community that volunteers. Then we can step in and we can help. For example, in 2008, Judy called from Nanaimo and she wanted to cut brooms. We said, okay, great, we'll bring tools, we'll bring signs, and we'll help you. She put up posters, she gave out flyers to everybody in her community. Nobody showed up, but she just wrangled her family into it. And we had a few volunteers. And so sometimes it starts small, but gradually more volunteers showed up. The best advertisement is actually the piles, because the people who are concerned about the ecosystem, when they start to see, hey, you mean you can cut that plant? Then they will find out how to help and they will step forward and help. So now Nanaimo has a nice strong volunteer base, and Judy has cleared the area she wanted to clear and many kilometers of the Nanaimo Parkway Trail. Many groups, thank goodness, work on removing invasive plants in environmentally sensitive areas. Okay, thank goodness that they do that. But Broombusters doesn't do that. Our mandate is actually to work with people, allowing them to cut the broom near where they live. The reason for this is very specific, because people can then watch it, they can monitor it, they can take ownership of the land, they're proud of the fact that they cut the broom when they're driving to town or just driving along the road. They can say, I saved that tree, I saved those native species. And people have said that they actually didn't really see the roadside plants until they started cutting the broom. And then it opened up their eyes to the natural world. So it's a way to involve people in taking care of the land. In fact, we call broom the gateway drug of invasive plants. Broom doesn't bite, sting, prick, or poison you, and even a novice with good instructions can cut broom successfully. After people enjoy that, then they move on to caring for the environment in other ways. So let's say that you were part of a town or a community that wanted to take part in broom busting. Let's say like Ucluelet, for example. What would you need? There'd have to be an area organizer, someone who can take charge of things. You'd need permission from the town or city or regional park or the the Ministry of Transportation, if it's a road that's in their jurisdiction. However, that they have accepted Broombusters as an Adopt a Highway program, so that's awesome. So we've worked that out for you too. There has to be a plan for pickup, okay? So we can't just cut piles of broom and leave it on the side of the road. So that's something that Broombusters helps to arrange. On the legal side, there's if you're working on MOT land, then there's their Adopt a Highway waiver. And the way you become a Broombuster is you learn how it is that we cut, and you sign a waiver, because we want to make sure that everybody is protected. And that moves on to protective gear. So we have vests and hats, and everyone is expected to, maintain the safe distance and so on. So people need tools. So Broombusters is an umbrella organization. So we want to make it possible for everybody who wants to cut broom to be able to cut broom. So we have tools that we loan out. We have signs. Let me see. I'll show you a sign. So we take these signs. Upside down. Okay. We put these signs up so that anybody that becomes interested will know, just go to the website, and then they can find us. When people are working on the road, we have signs like this on sandwich boards. We have Broombuster hats. Not everybody wears those. You have to work a while for that. When we have safety vests, we have Broombusters on them. Actually, and then, usually we look, pretty dirty. We're working on the road. The other day, one of our area organizers was recutting some broom, and she was walking down the road, and she didn't have a vest on. She was just carrying her loppers, and a police car pulled up, and she said that somebody had reported that a homeless woman was walking down the road with a gun. So anyway, we do wear vests when we're on the highway most of the time. So, all right, then you would pick a date at, 1 or 2 broom busting events. And then that community would start to have a broom busting presence. Okay, more people volunteer. What I say is, if you have 4 people, you can start a broom buster collective, because it's amazing how much 4 people can do. Okay, so it looks like it's this huge band of volunteers, and it might be 4 people, but then eventually it is more people, because people want to join in the fun. Okay, so another key thing is to make room for everybody. Some people like to cut in community groups, and some people just want to work on their own. So if you just have a cut on Saturday morning, a couple times in the spring, you'll get a certain number of people. But if you have cuts during different days or in the evening, and sometimes what we'll do is we'll just find out when can 4 people come together, and then we set up a time there, and then usually more than 4 people will show up. But we're trying to make room for anybody who wants to volunteer. But one of the main things is, rather than just picking a time, we also pick cut anytime locations. Okay, so that's when the real addicted Broombusters come into play, because you say, okay, we want to cut this part of Alberni Highway, or we want to clear this part of this city park. And the people, once they're trained, once they signed a waiver, they can go and they can cut anytime they want. So we have volunteers, some of them will cut broom for 120, 175 hours a year. They just love going out on their own or with a couple people, and that's probably one of, it's half and half. Half of the broom is cut in community cuts, and it's a very strong community builder. But the other half of the cut is done by people working on their own, who just enjoy getting out there and transforming their community. Okay, when you start cutting broom, it's really interesting. You can't assume that everybody's going to like you. So when we started in 2006, we used to go, really nasty letters to the editor about the terrible things we were doing. People say, you can't do that. It doesn't work. You shouldn't be doing that. You're a Nazi. You're crazy. You're out of line. Those are the things we'd get on in the newspaper, but also people would drive by and yell at us. So anyway, this is all very interesting. Times have changed quite a bit, but I remember one time a man pulled over, and in the beginning years when there was a community cut, sometimes the only person at the community cut was me. So anyway, one time I was in Qualicum Beach, and I wasn't too concerned because it was on a main road. A man pulled over, and I wasn't sure which of the many reasons why he was going to complain to me. Was he going to say, I shouldn't be cutting the broom because this person likes it, it's the wrong method, or that I'm the wrong person? Well, anyway, this particular angry person. He was from Scotland, and he said, you shouldn't be cutting it because that's prisoners' work. Okay, I thought that was really interesting. But, you know, our culture is different, and people like to get out and mess around in the brush. And if they can do something good at the same time, then we actually enjoy doing that. So now everybody knows the phrase cut broom and bloom, and very few people actually realize that Broombusters started it, and we're happy for it to just go out into, you know, public domain, because it tells very, very simply how you can get rid of Scotch broom. So I'd like to now show the video of how to cut broom. It's 7 minutes long, and then after that, you know, we talk a little bit more about some of the things that, if I could do that video again, things that I would change. But for right now, enjoy the video. Here we go. Scotch broom is a serious threat to native plants and ecosystems on at least 5 continents. In 2006, we founded Broombusters Invasive Plant Society to stop its spread on Vancouver Island, Canada. We've been successful in clearing broom in hundreds of parks, roads, farms, and green spaces. Our strategy is simple: cut broom in bloom. That's our slogan, and it works. Okay, so this is some large broom on the side of the road, and it's just beginning to bloom. The reason why we cut broom and bloom is the energy of the plant is above the ground. So if I cut it now, before the drought of summer, the plant will die. If I were to cut it in the wintertime, it wouldn't be that stressed out. It would have water, it would have time to get itself back together. So this was one single large plant that had one single stem. It looks like it's many plants, but if I just get my loppers ground level underneath here, one cut and I've got that huge plant. But when you have a messy one, sometimes you need to use your fingers and kind of just get the soil around it so that you can find out where to cut it. There we go. All right. So here I am on the side of a road, and we have lots of different kinds of broom here. So I'm going to point out some different ones. Some of it is a single stalk broom. It just has never been cut before. This is a new one. It's coming right out of the earth. One cut, and we have it down. This is a multiple stalk. That means it's been cut before. It could be somebody tried to cut it and didn't get low enough. It could be that it was mowed and it regrew. But I'm not cutting these branches. I'm cutting underneath here. Then it's going to die in the summer's heat. People ask, should I pull the broom? Sometimes it's okay. So I'm going to try pulling this broom and see if it comes out easily. And in fact, it did come out easily because it's still just a straight single stem, okay? So I can pat it back down and it's not disturbing the soil. Okay, so all of this soil has been disturbed. Seeds are going to sprout. As you can see, there's a lot of dead broom here. There's always a lot of dead broom with big broom plants. It's very flammable. What we're going to do here is, these are some of the mother plants. All around here there's broom, and it probably started here because this broom is really big. So we're just going to start chipping our way in, and then probably we're going to get into the center, and we're going to find that some of the stems of the broom are going to be like this. At that point, we'll get out the saw and cut down as much as we can. We can't get that down to the ground, but the old broom dies easily. If you don't have the tools or strength to cut the trunk of the giant broom, cut off the manageable branches. Don't hurt yourself or damage your tool by cutting a trunk that is too large. When you are finished, remove or chip large piles of broom so that you don't create a fire hazard. the bark of the stalk can stress and kill the broom plant, like girdling a tree. This is useful for large or difficult plants. Go after the advancing edge. Cut the small clumps and outliers first. Stop the spread of seeds. Contain it. Then cut the dense areas. A single broom plant can produce 18,000 seeds. And broom seeds are viable for 20 to 30 years. So don't disturb the soil. Don't pull, don't excavate, don't mow.
You'll notice how dense this broom is. Okay, this area was excavated, which means that somebody used a big machinery and they scooped out all the soil and they thought, I'm getting rid of the roots of the broom, that's great. But the problem is in the disturbed soil, all the seeds sprouted and you ended up with not 50 broom plants, but 500 broom plants. If there's a ground cover, which there now is, the seeds will not sprout the same way. So when we're cutting like this, we're hoping that the grass, the moss, the weeds, everything will keep the seeds from sprouting. So then you'll have just a regular roadside and not a roadside covered with broom. And broom is a fire hazard, so we don't want this on the sides of our roads. This was mowed by a roadside mower, and it mangled the branches. Sometimes mangling will totally kill them, but in this case, it didn't totally die. So if you come upon this, then you want to cut off the living branches. So what we have here is mowed broom. Okay, it's been like at least 5 years, 10 years or something that he's been trying to get rid of this broom by mowing. It doesn't die. So what you have to do then is you have to go plant by plant, and you have to find the single stalk, the single stem, and you have to cut it out there. So that's what I'm doing here. So there, that was just one plant. And then you cover it back up again because you don't want the new seeds to sprout.
It's amazing how much can be accomplished by just a few people in a very short amount of time. And it's fun. In 2016, Broombusters on Vancouver Island volunteered over 4,000 hours. Sometimes alternative methods are necessary in gravel, for example, in blackberries or on pastures. But where volunteers are cutting broom at ground level, broom is disappearing. Towns are becoming broom-free. Cut broom and bloom. It works. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
You can. Okay. All right. Hi. Okay. So who are the Broombusters, and how do you get volunteers, and how do you keep volunteers? It's interesting that Broombusters does draw a lot of volunteers. We'd like to get 10 times that many, but I think what actually draws us is when I read the book Drive by Daniel Pink, there was something helpful here. He said that classical economic theory tells us that people do things either for an external reward or out of fear of punishment. But he says that the third one, which is intrinsic motivation, is actually even more powerful. So for people to be happy, productive, and motivated, they need three things: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So when I thought about that, I thought, why did Patrick cut broom for 170 hours, clearing broom from Tualatin Beach up to Deep Bay on one road by himself? Okay, it was partly because nobody told him to do it, right? It was something that he thought to do. He was working on his own, but he was related to other people. He could solve his own problems, and he could contribute to a goal that was a good goal and that others were also working on. This is a true story. There was a town that somebody complained about some broom on public land, and the city then told us, it's like, well, we'll tell the Broombusters to do this. And I said, I don't tell the Broombusters to do anything. You know, we might suggest areas, but you know, they're free agents. They're not free employees, right? So nobody wanted to cut the broom that day or that year. But the next year, a couple came in, and basically they had freedom of the whole area. I'll show a picture of them later. They cut in Chemainus, and they just go around and they just cut broom everywhere. And they did cut that broom. When they could do it on their own, they were really happy to do it. Another story like that is when a major shopping center, a mall, complained to the Ministry of Transportation that the broom from the road was coming down onto their mall property. And so the Ministry of Transportation said, well, call Broombusters. So I just thought it was really interesting, a multi-million-dollar corporation calling the Ministry of Canada. The Ministry of Canada, you know, calls in Broombusters. So that's just fine. We did clear that area, and we were happy to do it. But it just shows a very interesting. Our priorities are not exactly where they should be and where they will be someday. So I'm going to show a PowerPoint for the last few minutes that shows some of the Broombusters and some of the stories. That'll explain a little bit more as well about how Broombusters works. Except that I don't see it. Let's see. Oh shoot, I really would like to show that one. Let's see if I can figure out how to do that. Okay, I think I see it now. Okay. Tell me if this is going to show up. Oh, that'd be sad. I guess I can't do it. Can you see this? No.
So, hi, Joanne. It's Brittany.
Yes, hi.
If you open the PowerPoint on your desktop, pop back over to the Zoom window, you'll be able to share your screen.
It is open now, and I'm just not seeing it there. It's on my desktop.
Okay, so pop back over to Zoom.
Okay.
And click share screen.
Okay.
And it should come up in the window there.
There it is. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. And now I'm doing slideshow and start from beginning. And there it is. Do you see it?
Wonderful. We can see it. Thanks,
Okay,
Joanne.
good. Thank you. Okay, so I just want to go through some of these slides and talk about, you know, where these people came from and how it worked. This was a group of teenagers who's, you know, they just cut massive amounts of broom. They're all young adults now, but they had a great time. And making it fun, of course, makes it fun. Yeah. So on the left-hand side, that's Patrick. You know, he's the one that cut broom for 170 hours. He still does that, okay? The one in the center, Nancy, I say, if any broom disappears, you know, within 5-mile radius of your house, probably it was Nancy just went out and cut that broom. And then the other guy to the right, he started this group just called the Doom of Broom. And you know, he and a group go out and they just cut on their own. This is the couple that basically they've taken on Chemainus by themselves. There's rules to follow. They follow the rules, and they tell us where the piles are, and we chip it up. This is one of the ways that we reach out to people. Parades, being seen in public places, having a table at CD Saturday, signs on the road. You have to get permission in a lot of places for the signs. Newspaper articles, go talk to the radio, social media, all of these things these are all ways that you can let people know that you want to, that they are welcome to volunteer with you. These were some volunteers in the days when there was tons of broom in Qualicum Beach. Qualicum Beach is pretty much broom free now. So the interesting stories about some of these individuals. This man was cutting broom. He's actually over 80 years old, and he's a weightlifting champion in Canada in his class. Anyway, he had been cutting broom, just going around his neighborhood, cutting broom for years. And, we didn't even know that he was there. And now we work together and chip up the broom that he cuts. And you need an area organizer. See, these are some of the area organizers in different areas, Nanaimo and Lanceville and Comox Valley and North Cowichan. So you just need somebody who can be the coordinator. And then there's total autonomy. You figure out how you want to do it in your community. This is a picture from, I think this is Cumberland. One of them is Courtney. In 2013, the Canadian Forces Base in Comox sent out 150 volunteers to come out and clear Ryan Road. Ryan Road was dangerous as far as deer jumping out onto the road, but now the broom is just about gone. We've still been working on it over the years. And this was interesting. I was just putting up a sign and I found piles and piles of broom like this, and I didn't know anything, like who cut this broom? Anyway, this was an individual too who just cut the broom near where he is now. Now we finally met, and last year he had the Battle of Hill 46 and cut all the broom in 1/4 of one of the interchanges. And those pictures are good because they give an idea of how stacking is a good way to do it for the chipper. So from 4 to 6 volunteers, the numbers have grown. They go up and they go down. I showed this picture because, well, there's 2 council members in there. There's 1 member of the Doom of Broom, and there's woofers. Some of you might know what woofers are. Woofers are great if you can support extra woofers in your area, on a farm or organic, whatever that you have for woofers. They are great for helping to eliminate the broom. So once again, these are some of the pictures of the early years in Qualicum Beach. You can see how huge some of the piles were and how they were stacked and how they were moved. More of the early years. And then after 10 years, we had a big event. It was our 10-year celebration. So what you see in here, you see the mayor and you see one of the council members and you see the planner. So when people in the town actually get involved, you're going to have much more success getting volunteers to come out. So this was the gang at our 10-year Broom Fest that we had. So I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to. I hope it actually opens up a lot of questions so that you can email me and let me know if there's, you have more considerations, more things you want to know about. We are, I get lots of emails from all around the world. From Australia, Peru, many different places. It's not only from people who are actively broombusters, and we're happy that we can, be of service in that way. But we're also open to learn from people who are, attacking broom in a different way. There's still a lot to learn. So, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Joanne. That was an awesome presentation. I myself learned lots, and maybe next time I'm on the island, I can sign up and come and help and experience cutting some broom. And I just love seeing adults and also youth being involved as well. That was really, really fantastic to see. So we do have a couple minutes for questions. So I've got, the first question is from Reed, wondering what's the best way to dispose of broom once it's being cut? Is it best to leave it in piles on site, or do you actually clear it and move it to a different area?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking that one. So what we do is, if it's inside a municipality, the municipality will remove it. Sometimes then they chip it or they compost it. They have different ways to dispose of it. If it's in the regional district, then Broombusters has to pay a chipper. But we're happy to do that, but we chip right on site most of the time. And before the seed pods form, the broom is harmless. So chipping on site is not a problem at all. So that's why we stop cutting as soon as the seed pods form. So if you're cutting on private property, you can just, if you're cutting it before the seed pods form, you can stack it, you can drag it, you can do anything with it and compost it. usually you can't burn it now, but you also cannot burn it usually this time of year. So sometimes what people do is they'll stack it somewhere and then they'll burn it in the fall. You can take it to the greens dump. You know, it's totally harmless. Once the seed pods form and they look like little peas, then you have to be careful because you don't want to be spreading the seed to areas where there is no broom. So if you're going to stack it, and when you're out in the brush somewhere or far away from the roads, you do want to stack it, but stack it on top of an infested area. Do not, you know, drag it somewhere onto some wildflowers or something and stack it there, but rather cut the broom, you know, pull the broom away from where there already is broom, and then bring it back and stack it right on top of where the broom was growing. So chipping, burning, composting, you know, burning is not the greatest thing to do, but it's a flammable, dangerous plant when it's alive as well. So sometimes it's better just to get rid of it. So does that answer your question?
That's perfect, Joanne, thanks. We have another question from Greg. He's wondering where people can access your Broombusters signs, and are they free or are they just offered up to your volunteer groups? Like, how does that process work?
Well, the signs are, like if a group wanted to become involved in Broombusters, then the signs would be free to them. So it kind of depends on where they are. Like we've sent out signs to some communities there. We have what sometimes satellite Broombusters groups, you know, like on Gabriel Island, for example. We helped them get started and we gave them some signs. And then they just took over, you know, so that now we just check in on what they're doing, but they're totally autonomous. But we like to have the signs there because we know that they know what they're doing, and then the signs will refer them to the website, and it's always good to have people go to the website because then you can see the video, for example, is on the website. So then people will have more instructions about how to cut broom properly. But they're not just free to just have, they're free to use.
Perfect, thank you. And we've got time for one more question. Sarah is wondering if you can explain again why mowing doesn't work. So even when broom is in bloom, is it because it disturbs the soil?
Okay, well, this is good because I said I was going to if I made that video again, I would do it a little bit differently. Okay, if you leave this much broom above the ground, it's just going to come right back. Okay, so mowers will leave that much at least when they're mowing. So basically, you just have a plant that just grows, you know, very, very short. Eventually, it would grow tall again. But if you mow it again, it's still going to stay alive. It's just going to stay alive at a very low level. So the same thing with a weed whacker. Now, when we use a weed whacker, and sometimes we do, with a blade, you go in there and you just, you know, cut everything down and you pull everything away, you know, so that you're getting the big branches out of the way. But then you have to go back and you have to cut it again. So what I would say now, if I were doing the video over again, is I would say you cut the broom once and then you go and you look at it again, because probably you need to do even one more cut so that you can get it even just a little bit below the soil so that you can, you know, then cover it back up. The big broom, which you wouldn't mow over, but big broom dies easily. So if you just cut off, don't ruin your loppers or your back, and just cut off everything that's green, you can leave that broom like, you know, a foot or 2 feet high. And as long as you've taken off everything that's green on it, it's going to die during the summer. So sometimes it's you either have to take it all the way to the ground. Mowing is not all the way to the ground, it's just like this, or you have to leave it, you know, a foot or two above the ground so that it gets parched by the summer and dries out and dies. So I wish we could mow it, and I know of many fields that are mowed, and you know, it looks good from the distance, but you get up close and you go, that's not grass, that's broom. So none of the animals can eat it. So.
Thanks so much, Joanne. And again, a big thank you for sharing all your expertise with all of us today. And that's on behalf of us here at the ISC and all those that are listening. Just to let everyone know, we'll be sending out a short link to an evaluation survey. And we just kindly ask that you please fill it out so we can get your feedback and ideas for future webinars. Also, we have several more exciting webinars coming up to celebrate Invasive Species Action Month, including one next week on the Play Clean Go program. We also invite you to enter the What's in My Backyard photo contest. So taking part is really simple. You could actually win up to $350 for your family, youth group, or class. The contest runs through May until the closing date, which is May 31st, 2020. We challenge you to spot and photograph as many invasive species in your yard or local area as you can. Also check out the BC Invasive Species Action Month website for more information on the photo contest, upcoming events, and to register. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.